All right. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today with our Altius roundtable conversation. I'm RandiLynn Lukac. I am the Chief Operating Officer here at Altius, and I am excited to be a part of today's conversation around leadership development through productivity. And I will let the two lovely ladies that are here with me today introduce themselves before we get started. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you, RandiLynn. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Stephanie Dorwart, and I am the owner and CEO of Altius Healthcare Consulting Group. I have been working in the consulting side of the business for a little bit over 20 years and primarily focus on workforce optimization, staffing effectiveness, leadership development, and everything dealing with creating a culture of excellence. I'm really excited today to be joined by Dana, and I'll let her introduce herself quickly.
Hi, my name is Dana Mikos. I am Executive Director of Nursing at Armstrong County Memorial Hospital. Actually, tonight is our service award banquet, and I would be 35 years of service with ACMH. So I have worked through all gamuts and different roles within this hospital, and have always enjoyed working with Altius and RandiLynn and Stephanie. So I look forward to today. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, today we really want to focus on the importance of leadership development and how we can embrace leadership development and encourage that development through workforce optimization and productivity. But before we dive into anything too technical, I wanted to throw a question out there and ask the two of you, is there something that you do as a leader that really makes you have a brand? I don't care if it's something silly that you do, but it's something that makes you as a leader and gives you a little bit of a brand around who you are. So I don't know who wants to take it first, but anything that either of you are doing?
I mean, this is an easy one for me. And I actually had a sign made for my wall. And it's always remember where you started. And I think that is incredibly valuable in remembering, because as a new nurse or a young nurse, we think we know what we know. But after, again, 35 years of experience, there's so much to learn. And I learn something new every day. But I have to remember where I began and where my staff are, right? They may be sitting in the same shoes that I was 35 years ago. So for me, that's kind of my brand. Remember where you started.
Dana, that's so good. I absolutely love that phrase. And I'm certainly, always remembering where I started. And more recently, I think my brand probably has come down to a phrase that I find myself repeating with my clients often. And it deals really with data and benchmarks. And the brand statement is benchmarks aren't good. Data's not good. Benchmarks aren't bad. Data's not bad. It's just feedback. And that mindset is really becoming the cornerstone of my leadership brand, but also defining principle of the work that we're doing with our clients like Armstrong, because in healthcare, productivity data benchmarks often come with a little bit of baggage and many times a lot of emotion. And there typically tends to be an emotional response on the other end of that, because leaders want to be A leaders. They want to always get the A star, if you will. And when we're sharing feedback, if it's below the median or if it's not performing well, there tends to be those emotions. And so we're really taking away the judgment out of metrics and the criticism out of metrics, and just sharing that we're trying to reframe it. So my brand really has started around the fact that data is neutral. It's a flashlight that's shining the light on something that we might need to address or change. It's not a hammer. And when we take the emotion out of it, we can create space for strong conversations, insight, and growth. And I've learned, through my work with our clients, that we can really shift everyone's relationship with data. So that's really what my brand is focusing on right now.
And I love that. And I think that's great. And a lot of, what we've done here with I have a lot of new leaders here. And that's really kind of the same thing that I've been trying to drive home to them. So I like that.
Yes. I think in general with feedback, it's so hard as leaders to know how to deliver feedback. And when we think about feedback in general, not just with data, how do we kind of take that emotion out of it? So I think for leadership at large, feedback is a great way to be able to communicate to our team and to move our team forward. And being able to provide feedback is a leadership strength. And being able to receive it too, I think leads to a strong leader, because we all need to know what maybe we need to do a little differently in our day-to-day. So with that, I'm going to ask if either of you have learned anything from a great leader that you have carried through your career. Anything that influenced you so much that you try to embrace that in your daily world today.
And I can go first on this one. I think one of the most powerful lessons I learned came from a leader and mentor that I directly reported to early on in my career. And their message was, do not lead from a place of fear. Always lead from a place of belief. If you're fearing what's going to happen, or you're fearing what the unknowns are, you're never going to be able to influence that change. And that advice completely reshaped my leadership philosophy. When I, come to the table and approach challenges with belief in my team, belief in the employees, belief that we have possibility of changing something, belief in the potential of a client, belief in what lies within the data, I lead with purpose. And when I lead with purpose instead of pressure and fear, I can really make stronger recommendations and changes, and really lead from a place of what's possible instead of a place of lack and what's not possible. And this really has become a core of my philosophy and coaching strength. And I'm really grateful for that mentor, because it reshaped everything that I think about whenever I'm approaching a project, a client, a situation, or anything in general.
I really like that, and I'll always keep that in the back of my mind as well. That's great. For me, it's trying to look. It's healthcare is challenging, right? Instead of trying to look at things, problems, challenges, whatever that may be, trying to look at those as opportunities, right? And what can we do different? And no one ever says, have an okay day, right? We want to have a great day. So just trying to be positive and look at each day as it comes, with that attitude. And I meet every morning with my supervisors and managers, and that's how we try to start our day to at least set us in the right direction and set the tone, even though we know there's going to be a lot of bumps along the way, but we're going to make it as a team, and we're here for each other to support each other. So that's something that I instituted here to start out as a group, and I love it, and I think that my team loves it because they feel supported. So
I think that's great. The positive outlook, the looking to what the opportunities are as compared to the barriers or the challenges. And that is a great segue into the philosophy that we have at Altius around productivity. And that is that productivity produces positive results. And that's because productivity and workforce optimization touches so many things. And that's really what we're here to talk about today, is how productivity touches leadership development. So what does leadership development through productivity mean to you? And how have you seen it applied effectively in healthcare? Just going to start us off with a pretty loaded question there.
Right.
I don't know who wants to take it first.
Well, I can go first on this. I mean, I think in healthcare, you have to look at the big picture. That's what it means for me. And that's what the message that I send with managers, because they may look at their numbers and be like, oh, this could be better. We could do something different. And maybe we couldn't have, right? Because you have to look at the big picture. You have to look at what you had going on in your units and, your patients and acuity. And maybe you really had a unique situation where you had to do things differently outside of the norm. And that's completely acceptable. And I think for healthcare, I think that's huge. It's a very dynamic, moving organization, and you kind of have to go with the flow and, again, see the big picture.
Yes. And, I'll build off of that a little bit. When you're looking at the big picture, with leadership through productivity, oftentimes it's really focusing on how you can apply it effectively to your individual areas and the areas of opportunity. And the fact that when you focus on productivity and a culture of excellence, productivity can really become the foundation for change management. And it's that foundation of helping leaders understand where they might have opportunities to shift things. And many times, productivity metrics might be shining lights on things like access issues. It might be showing areas where there's a length of stay challenge. There might be showing areas where, you can really, find those opportunities for improvement in throughput, maybe, utilization within the operating room. And it's all related. So I really see leadership through productivity as a lens that shows us within our business of healthcare, within our mission, where we have opportunities to change. And, this is really rooted in that culture of patient excellence as well and employee satisfaction. It's not just a financial metric. It's really a leadership tool when you're looking at productivity. And when used properly, it allows department leaders, like Dana was mentioning, to really make informed, proactive decisions and strategic choices instead of reacting to crises. And I've seen this transformation play out time and time again with leaders who initially are very negative about productivity metrics and benchmarks, and all they want to do is basically discredit the information. The numbers are wrong, the data is wrong. Where'd you get this from? But when they start to truly understand what it means, how it relates to their units, their departments, their goals, and they're coached on how to interpret and act on it, they stop firefighting and negating it, and they begin future building. And when they future build through action planning and understanding, now you have that culture of excellence that's being propelled through a journey of leadership and through productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to add that when you think about leadership and you think about productivity, exactly what you're both saying is that it touches so many different aspects. Productivity isn't just the data. It's not just hitting that target. It's understanding how operations are working. And when we promote from within, we sometimes don't realize that leader that was just promoted, that was just standing next to their peers, doesn't necessarily know operations, doesn't necessarily know how to speak the financial language, doesn't necessarily know how to understand the anatomy of their productivity target or how to apply it or even interpret the data. So we're really elevating and educating our leaders when we are implementing workforce optimization strategies and productivity into their day-to-day operations. All right, so that takes us to my next question, and that is, how can structured productivity strategies help develop stronger department leaders?
I think we answered a little bit of this question what we were discussing, because that's what I found. As I mentioned, I had a very new leadership team. COVID changed lots of things, and we had a lot of moving parts and people who left healthcare. So I had still a rather young leadership team, and just knowing that they did not understand. And I think structuring it where right out of the gate, you're talking about productivity as soon as they step into this role, and you make it a positive thing. It's not negative. Maybe that as that staff member, that's how things were viewed, right? Because somebody was bringing this data forward and maybe it wasn't presented the way it should have been, but them understanding and how they need to communicate to the staff and how this is a good thing. And something, you mentioned about people commenting, well, that data is wrong. I mean, once in a while there is a computer glitch, but if you bring that manager up to speed and you start them out right out of the gate, when they look at that, they know, Angela, our sterile processing manager, her numbers, we had a dramatic change, and she said, Dana, something's not right. She forgot to report very pertinent information, but she was able to look at that report and figure that out herself, right? It was an error on our part, but she knew, I'm not going to just accept this. It actually was wrong. But, we don't want people to think the norm, well, that can't be right. I mean, we want them to be able to look at that report and know how we need to pivot, shift gears, or what happened here. Maybe we did do something wrong and we need to look at the data differently because it was wrong. So that's what I've found super effective for our team. And meeting with you and our regular scheduled meetings and them seeing that this really isn't a negative thing, I think has been huge for my group.
What a powerful example and a great representation of how you can empower a leader, because they recognize the data was wrong. And
right. It was our fault, not yours.
Yeah. And just understanding that they knew that, hey, something doesn't look right is powerful. And that structure creates empowerment. That structure creates freedom. And that structure really creates clear expectations by providing tools and information and dashboards that really starts to develop strong leaders that, are on that trajectory of becoming the CEO and CFOs of their individual levels. When you have that consistent rhythm of accountability and the consistent rhythm of reviewing with check-ins and, as Dana mentioned, monthly calls and operational reviews, this really starts to create that roadmap and that journey towards the future. And when you train the leaders to analyze their reports and their performance and identify opportunities instead of always looking at it as a gap, looking at the gain, where do we have the opportunities to improve, and to start to course correct, powerful things can happen. And you can start to really make those slow and steady changes that structure strong conversations with the leaders. And, you're looking at, here's what the data shows. Let's talk about, what it might be telling us. And then what can we do about it? And then your leaders become leadership accelerators and can really focus on that end game so that they understand how to manage towards those gains, and they are targeting, what they can do to improve. And that's when the confidence of the leaders really skyrockets, and it provides clarity to the organization of what needs to happen next.
Yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead, Dana.
Oh, that's perfectly said. That was excellent.
And we were talking a little bit about how we're empowering these leaders, right? And how it's not just that, Dana, you mentioned previously some of the leaders that maybe were on the receiving end of the data, and it wasn't communicated properly. It wasn't communicated maybe from a place of confidence or from a place of empathy even, right? Mm-hmm. So what challenges do we face, or do the leaders face, to think about balancing productivity with staff engagement and morale? Again, putting that positive spin on it. But what are the challenges that the leaders themselves are facing with that balance?
Well, I think, we often look at what can we do to improve? What can we do to improve? And we're often going at the staff saying, well, maybe we need to pivot, shift gears. We need to look at this differently. But I think the challenge is they forget that they have to celebrate the wins, right? When we have done, had a great month or a great week, whatever it was, you need to let the staff know, right? We shifted gears. Look at what we've done, and you're doing a wonderful job. And celebrate the wins, not just look at opportunities for improvement, but let them know, we've done a great job here, and we're all on the same team, right? We're here to make this together. It's not just about me or me making staffing decisions. This is about all of us, and let them know when they're doing well. I think we lose sight of that. I think that that's something that we definitely need to be reminded of. And that's a challenge because, again, productivity has always been looked at, well, this could have been a little better this month, but we need to maybe not focus on that consistently and talk about what we've done well.
I love to celebrate the wins. And I think sometimes we wait for the huge wins to celebrate them. Right. And what I heard you mentioning is, regardless of how small the positive move was or how small it was, celebrate it.
Right.
Even the tiniest, littlest change that had a positive outcome, I think when you're able to celebrate that, you can then start to get that employee and staff engagement around the goals and elevate everything together. I think for me, with this question, I see the biggest challenge that healthcare leaders face regarding balancing productivity with staff engagement and morale is a limiting belief that you cannot have strong productivity and strong employee engagement, or that it's impossible to have strong productivity and high quality, or strong productivity and high morale. And we have to really take away that limiting belief, because it's not true. Best practice, high performing organizations tend to balance all of those, and they have strong employee engagement, they have strong quality, they have strong patient satisfaction, and strong financial, strong operations, and strong productivity. And so the biggest challenge is really overcoming the narrative that productivity and high quality cannot coexist. And I think another is the narrative that productivity equals burnout. Productivity equals doing more with less. Productivity equals high stress. And too often, we really have that limiting belief that improving productivity means that we're going to be having a reduction in force. We're cutting positions. We're pushing people to do more with less, changing all these things. And sometimes it's not about that at all. And we need to flip the script for all of us to understand that if we focus on the alignment, focus on the outcomes, celebrate the wins, make sure that we have the right alignment of our team, and that's going to create better opportunities to have more patient volume, to have better, outcomes. And then our staff's not going to be overwhelmed because we have the right processes in place. We have the right tools in place. Patients are receiving timely care. Leaders are managing resources wisely. When all this is happening, then we can start to communicate things in a different way and get rid of that false narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. Really great points. I love celebrating the wins. I love celebrating the wins in the moment. And I love the fact that, Stephanie, you used the word align, and that really made me think about how productivity and workforce optimization is really about aligning your resources, right? And making sure that you have the right person performing the right task for the right outcome. And doesn't the day go so much better when everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing? Mm-hmm. Isn't it so much smoother when we know who's handling what, because we have the right people in the right roles at the right time to do the jobs? And that's what it's about. And that's when you have that win to celebrate, because everybody was where they were supposed to be, or they pivoted and they handled the crisis the way that they had been trained or taught, or whatever that was, that is to really allow them the confidence to celebrate those wins and the confidence to know that they can do it again because it worked. And I think that right person, right place, right task, that alignment, celebrating the small wins is really what allows the leaders to balance that employee engagement and the productivity goals that they have.
And if I could add one more thing before the next question on this, Dana mentioned something early in the conversation, about getting out of bed, and that no one gets out of bed and says, I really want to have a horrible day today. No. We all get out of bed and we want to have a great day. Mm-hmm. Similarly, your employees aren't coming to the hospital, to the healthcare organization, to wherever they're working and saying, I really want to be super unproductive today and non-effective. No one's doing that. So really, I think this plays into that of just employee engagement starts by making a difference. And you're making a difference when you're celebrating the wins.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that. And I hope nobody's waking up and saying they want to be unproductive, at least not on our teams, right?
Right.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. When we started our conversation, we talked about being inspired by a leader earlier on in our careers. So I want to talk about how we can think about the role of a mentor or a coach in developing leadership skills within a productivity focused environment. So really or just leadership development in general, where does coaching and mentorship come into the development of our leaders?
I think, for myself, I try to be supportive of all my managers and supervisors, and not, try to understand what they know, what they need to know, and support them along the way, right? So if they really are struggling with understanding things, getting them the education that they need, looking at the big picture, like I've said before, and what can I do to help them? And, I often reach out and say, we need to take a look at this. And I think we need to look at things differently and a pivot, like, we've been talking this whole conversation. So for me, just being supportive and recognizing what's necessary and helping move that leader through the continuum has been super effective in managing productivity in general. Again, nothing is negative. It's always positive. Even if it doesn't look positive sometimes on paper, I'm okay with that. And okay, what can we do differently? So I think just keeping that positive attitude and understanding, again, goes back to, like I said, remember where you started. We're not all experts, most certainly. And we may never get there, but we got to get to the best place that we can be in.
Dana, I'm going to just kind of play off of that just because of our relationship and our partnership. And I completely saw that what you just said, what they need, knowing what they need, and you created, or we developed the cadence of continually meeting with the leaders so that they could grow in their confidence around productivity. So you gave them a resource and you identified that need and you provided the resource to your leaders in the Altius team, but really to sit down and create that environment where they felt that they were allowed or permitted to ask their questions and not be criticized or judged by them, right? And they're bringing positive ideas to the table, and we're seeing what we need to unpack and what we need to do to provide them the support so that they understand and they can implement their changes or reach their target. So I think as a true example, you identified the need and you provided them with the resource to help move them forward in their confidence and in their skills.
And I'm going to build off of that and, really play off of the fact that every leader is in a completely different situation when they're promoted into their role. And, within that, their skill sets in every different discipline are going to be at a different level. So I really see coaching and mentorship is meeting the leaders where they're at. And, Dana and RandiLynn mentioned understanding where each of the leaders are and then using that as a way to provide additional resources, knowledge, skills, expertise to help to bring them along. And so this really becomes, to me, when you're thinking about mentorship and coaching, walking alongside with the leaders so that you're not necessarily walking ahead of them and you're not necessarily directing and telling them exactly what to do, but you're helping them build their skill set, build their confidence, build that momentum. And when we meet leaders where they're at and we mentor them and coach them in all the areas of development and places, then we're just growing our skill set as an organization and we're developing all of that so that we can lead everyone to the next level. And this really helps us to build the culture of excellence that is going to deliver stronger productivity results, deliver improvement in processes, because leadership growth is a very, very personal matter. And everyone, has different needs for mentorship, to coaching, for knowledge, for expertise, and allowing the leaders to have that space to understand where they have knowledge gaps and then providing them with the assistance to grow and develop those skills.
Absolutely.
All right. So I kicked us off with a pretty loaded question, and I'm going to wrap us up with another loaded question. Looking ahead to the future, what trends do you see shaping leadership development in healthcare through productivity strategies? Where are we going in the future as it relates to leadership development and productivity?
So I can start.
That's great.
It's a heavy question.
It is.
So one of the trends I see in the future might deal more with the structure and the integration of different disciplines and departments within a hospital. I see the future having an integration of productivity metrics, finance budget targets, and human resource position control. And those areas being, much more integrated as, we work towards, the future of what productivity, workforce optimization, staffing effectiveness actually is. And through that, I also see a strong trend with integrated leadership development that touches all of those points. and really makes the connections for the department leaders between their staffing guides on a nursing unit and their staffing budget in the finance department, and how many positions they should have on their position control. And that all of this is taught alongside an individual leadership journey, or even through virtual training modules, if you will, where change management, communication skills, conflict resolution, all of those emotional leadership skills that you need are developed as well, so that the most effective leaders are really focusing on understanding all of those components and interpreting their data, how they can inspire their teams, how they can put together a work plan, and ultimately develop their leadership skills so that they can influence, enhance, and empower their teams to raise their productivity. And this is all done with, compassion. It has to be done with clarity and confidence. And really, I see a future where there's, I think, much more of that human side of leadership that maybe in healthcare, because we are so technical and dealing with so many, heavy things, we've, has not been at the forefront as much as it is in today's current environment.
And, something that's happening here with our hospital, as far as the future goes, is we're not walking alone anymore. We have a partner, with our Indiana hospital, Punxsutawney Hospital, and having other leaders and mentors to work with. And, the future isn't about standing alone. It's about how can we stand up together? Because, as I said, healthcare is challenging. I was watching the news last night and I saw another hospital closing. And you have to be able to walk into the future differently, and you have to we're going to have to walk in together holding hands and use each other's expertise and what has worked for you or what has worked for me, and how can we mold that together and move forward and maintain a successful, productive organization. And, I'm super hopeful for us here. And I see that happening as a very small, really vital hospital that, it needs to be here. And we need to make sure that this hospital stays here. So that's where I see at least our future going. And I'm excited for that.
I think that is a phenomenal way to end our conversation, is that we have to do it together, and that we have to support each other, even if you are in a formalized, alignment and partnership, or if you're just peers in the industry. We all have to rise together to continue to provide patient access or access to care, and, really just to be there for our communities. And so I think, really through all of this, we learned the power of productivity and how we can build our leaders for the future. Thank you both for your time and joining us in this conversation. I thought it was excellent and really inspiring. So hopefully those that joined us were also inspired. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Dana and Stephanie, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.